Hi, and welcome to Learn Basic Drawing. I'm Bruce Blitz, and I'd like to ask you something. Have you ever heard people say when it comes to drawing you have to be born with it? Well, don't believe it. I say that anyone with a positive attitude and a desire, and a pencil and paper, can learn to draw. Even if you're one of those people that say they can't draw a straight line. Here, take a look at this. Look at that, a straight line. Nothing to it. That's lesson number 1. I'm kidding. But if you're anything like millions of other people, you probably already have little drawings and doodles all over the margins of your notebook, shopping lists, little scraps of paper while speaking on the telephone. And that's because drawing is fun, relaxing, and a great way to express yourself. Now in this tape, we're going to deal with the basics of drawing. And if you just take the little time required to understand these next few principles, I am absolutely positive that you will be on your way to learning to draw. So with that, let's get started. Okay, first let's discuss lines. When you begin a drawing, it's got to start somewhere, and this is it. Now, line is just that, however. It's one-dimensional. You can make it short, or long, or make it wiggly, or jagged, or make it curved, or make it thick, or thin. In other words, it has length and direction. Now, line can be used in cartooning to make this fellow appear to have just heard a loud noise, or possibly his head is shaking. Or line can be used to make the gentle flow of water appear to go around this post. Okay, let's move into shape. Now, shape is achieved by taking that line for a walk around the page and meeting it again at the beginning. We've got shape. But there's still nothing to sink your teeth into yet. It's flat. It isn't solid. But form takes it into the third dimension, adds some depth to it. See? You can even take this little guy here and show you that. He can actually put his hand behind it. And that's what gives your drawing the depth. Okay, now we move on to the next step, which is taking this shape and adding some tone to it. Now, tone is the overall color of the object. I'm going to put a nice even tone in the whole thing. Now, the next step, this is still pretty flat, I'd say. But the next step is what's going to add realism to your drawings, and that is the key. First, let's add our light source. Now, right in the center here, I'm going to put a big sun. And he's going to be the light source for all our objects. Now, that means if the sun is facing this side on this object, that means that this side would be black or dark brown in this case. And the key to giving form is shading. So let's give it the darkest value. This shade here would be a little bit lighter than that because it's seeing some of the light. And the top, I'm not going to fool with it all because that's getting the most light. Now the next step would be a cast shadow. And a cast shadow comes from the side that is away from the light, this dark side here. And the cast shadow takes on the shape of the object itself. Now let's go back and do the rest of these drawings. Now here's a circle that becomes a sphere when shaded. Now the light is coming from this side. Let's put some overall tone in it. The light's here. This side here would be darker. Now, unlike the cube, where flat planes are joining together and meeting, and the color changes are abrupt, this is round, so therefore the color, or the shadowing, has to wrap around the object, like that. Now let's not forget the cast shadow, which again comes out of the shaded side and takes on the shape of the object itself. How are you doing so far? You with me on all this? That's good. Okay, let's move down to the cylinder. And the cylinder, the light's up here. So again, this side will be the darker one. Let's put some overall tone in it first. I'll make this side the darker one. Getting gradually lighter, because again, it's like the sphere, and unlike the cube where it's rounded, and it's going to take on the shape of the cylinder. Leave the top alone because that's getting the most light. Now let's put in some shading. I'm going to cast shadow. All right, now the next is the cone. And let's make the cone sort of pinkish. Now the light is coming from this side, so this is going to be the light side, this is going to be the dark side. First some overall color. And now this side be a little darker. And it's like the other two here, where it's going to wrap around the shape of the cone. Getting gradually lighter. Cast shadow. Practice these 4 basic geometric shapes and shade them: the cube, sphere, cylinder, and cone. And you'll find that by using a combination of these 4 basic shapes, you can draw any complex object. And that is the key. All right, now let's use some of these simple basic shapes to create some larger, more complex, recognizable objects. Now, I like to start out by saying that it won't always be exactly like the cylinder, ball, or cube, or cone, but it'll be pretty close. For instance, we're about to draw a lampshade, and we're going to use a cylinder shape, but it won't be quite so straight up and down on the sides. I'll show you. We'll start with that cylinder. And a sphere down here, and another cylinder here to connect it to. Another ball up there. Now let's flare the bottom part of that lamp out a bit, modifying the cylinder. Now let's go back in shadow. Gradually getting lighter, wrapping around that cylinder shape. Same thing here. Shadow this side because the light is coming from the upper right. And let's gradate that tone right in. Little cast shadow. And that's it. Shadow this a little bit. Put some detail in. All right, now I'd like to show you how I shadowed that. Moving up here, by laying my pencil on the side and giving a nice even stroke like that, I get an even tone, a flat tone with it distributed evenly throughout the whole thing. But if I add a little more pressure to the point side, watch what happens. And it gets gradually lighter. So it's doing my shading for me. And it makes a nice shading effect. Also, I'd like you to start practicing some pencil strokes to loosen up. Loosen up with line. Like, do some of this. Get your whole wrist into it and get some free forms. Try this. Because it's going to come in handy when you're doing some drawings. Work this way. Go back and cross it. Just get loose. Also, you can try some straight up and down strokes. Lay them right next to each other. Get to know the pencil. Okay, now I'd like to show you something you can use to gradate these tones better and blend your tones. This is called a paper stump, which is nothing more than rolled up paper, and it's available in art stores, and it's pretty inexpensive. Now see in here how we have it blended, but we can make that a little softer by going back. And what it does, the paper stump picks up the tone and distributes it around. See? You can use your finger, but This is a nice little tool. It's fun to use too. All right, let's move on. Let's this time start with a cone shape. We're going to draw an evergreen starting with a cone. Now I'm going to lightly draw in this cone and use this as my guideline. And by, again, laying my pencil on its side and starting at the top, going from side to side, wiggling back and forth. And this is why it's important to practice getting loose with line, because it comes in handy. See, we're getting that evergreen effect just by going backwards, forwards, and then little strokes like this indicate some ground. Now you could go back, and if the light was coming from, say, over here, you could just go a little heavier with your color pencil on this side to indicate some sort of shading, and then maybe a little heavier here for the cast shadow. All right, let's move on. Okay, this time let's start with a long cylinder shape. Laying down. And put a cone in the front. And a long rectangle that we're going to put into a cube. I guess you can call it a cube tangle. Out this side now, I think you can already see it's starting to shape up into an airplane. And another cube back here. Flat one from here. Okay, now what we've done here is we've combined a few of these simple shapes to get a larger one. Let's put some cylinders under here now for the engines. Now let's go back and put some detail in this, or carve out of the basic shape. And make it look more like an airplane. Same thing over here. Like that. Put some windows in here. Make a line down there and put some dots on it for the people so they can see what we're doing from inside the airplane. Now I'd like to show you something called the kneaded eraser. This is a great eraser to use, and we're going to erase some of these pencil lines. Now, kneaded spelled with a K, and what that means is you can play with it like a piece of clay, and what happens is all the color that it has picked up as you play with it, the color diffuses and it sort of cleans itself. And the best thing about a kneaded eraser is it can be shaped, make a point to get into some hard to reach places without ruining the rest of your picture, and it doesn't leave any crumbs. So then what's good about that is you don't have to go back brushing off and smearing your picture. Okay, let's add some tone to this. If the light was coming from up top, we would just apply some tone to the bottom and blend it up. And on these cylinder shapes, maybe dark because the wing is casting a shadow on it. And we can put some shading inside. All right, I know you're doing fine, so let's continue. Now let's use some cone shapes to create some mountains. Now for this I'm going to be using a piece of brown chalk. Now let's start with some basic cone shapes. And let's vary them a little bit in size. And as I said before, there might not always be exactly like the initial shape, but pretty close. So let's go back and add some character to these mountains. Have our light source coming from up here, and let's go back and shadow. First, let's put a little tone in. Okay, now laying it on its side. And gradually getting lighter. Same thing here. Adding that third dimension.
And let's put some more bumps into this mountain. All right, now I'd like to show you, like I did with the pencil before when I laid it on its side, the same thing is true of a piece of chalk or charcoal. This could be charcoal just as well. By laying it flat down and applying pressure evenly like this, I'll get a nice even tone throughout. But if I apply a little more pressure to this side, watch what happens. It gets a little sharper edge and then it gets gradually lighter. See? Or if I apply pressure the other way, the opposite happens. Now looking back at this mountain, you can blend it as before with your stomp, or you can use your finger, or you can use what we artists call a tissue and just go back and blend those tones in there and get a real nice softness to it. All right, let's continue. Okay, let's start this time with two cube shapes. Two different size cube shapes. Here's the first one. Let's put the other one right back here. Okay, that's some cylinder shapes. And you see we have a truck. Now let's go back and carve some planes out of this and we'll get some detail that way. There's the front, there's some headlights, and let's put some hubcaps in there. And if the light is coming from up top, we would shadow this whole side. Same thing with this side. And maybe some cast shadow. That's how easy it is to draw a truck. The Blitz Trucking Company. Okay, let's continue. Now I'm going to take some simple square here, smaller square here, and even a smaller one right there. Now let's take a triangle shape on this one and that one, a line down there, and let's add the third dimension to it. Now let's put a cylinder shape right here and a cone on top. And maybe another cone shape back here. Now let's go back over this and have the light coming from this side, and we have a barn with a silo. This side would take all the light. This wouldn't have any light. Let's shadow this side of the silo, laying it on its side and applying more pressure to one side. Back and add some more detail to that, cutting the top of the cone off. Same thing with the mountains. General tone. Put some texture in the front end. And you see how easy it is to draw a barn, some windows. So now when you look at your blank piece of paper and you're looking at an object or a scene to draw, you have a system. You're going to start by building on simple shapes, turn them into form by adding shading, add some texture and detail. Try some of these on your own. Now let's discuss some basics of perspective. Perspective is the technique of drawing so that objects have the proper depth and distance. In other words, a real solid three-dimensional look. Now, perspective can be a little tricky at first, but it must be learned because a drawing done in bad perspective can make your picture look very wrong and unprofessional. So we're just going to cover a few simple rules here today. And if you'd like to continue your study of perspective, there are many good books available. All right, let's begin.
All right, now I'm going to draw a horizontal line. Now this horizontal line is called a horizon line. And the horizon line is the viewer's point of view. If we were going to be showing a lot more sky, we would have that horizon line much lower. And if we were going to have a lot more ground, we would do the opposite and make the horizon line much higher. Now, let's put a dot right in the center. And this dot represents where parallel lines appear to meet. Now, parallel lines never really do meet, but that's where they would appear to meet, and that is called a vanishing point. Now, let's assume we're standing looking down a long road. And of course, that road never really comes together, but it appears to do that in the distance, and that's where the vanishing point comes in. Now, let's draw these lines. And you see, it looks like we're looking down that road. Let's draw a couple more lines here. These represent the lines in the road. It's beginning to look like a video game. Now, if we wanted to put a fence along the side of the road, or maybe telephone poles, we would use the same vanishing point. Let's draw that line like that. Maybe another line here to where the bottom of the poles would connect. Now let's draw the telephone poles in. They'd be getting further apart as we get closer to the foreground. Now these, they cross. All right, now on the other side, let's draw some lines for maybe a structure like a hot dog stand, perhaps, along the side of the road. I'm going to draw a couple extra lines, which I'll show you what we're going to use them for in a second. Here's the bottom. All right, now let's go back over this and put in some vertical lines. Let's make it about that long. And these lines will go off horizontal like that to the side of the building. And this could be a hot dog stand. Now, you can use this line. Say he's got an awning. And here, this could be a pavement, the sidewalk. And this fellow's selling hot dogs along the side of the road using the same vanishing point. Now, with one vanishing point, this is an example of one-point perspective. Now, I'm going to make another horizontal line. Now, this again is my horizon line. And this time I'm going to make two vanishing points. One there and one there. Now, I'm going to take straight edge and make my parallel lines going to this set of vanishing points. 1, 2. Now I'll make some vertical lines. 1, 2. Now, where the parallel lines meet these vertical lines, I'm going to make another set of lines going to the other vanishing point. 1, 2. Another vertical line here. A triangle shape right there. And at the point of that, I'm going to make another line to the vanishing point. Now, with two vanishing points, this is an example of two-point perspective. And when I'm laying out a picture, I'll use a straight edge and a pencil and vanishing points and horizon lines just to make sure that my perspective is correct. But when it comes time to doing my finished picture, I'll draw over these lightly drawn pencil lines and do it freehand and get a much more natural look to my drawing.
In order to learn to draw the human figure, as opposed to the inhuman figure, we're going to start with the oldest and I think the best way to do that, and that's the stick figure.
Okay, let's start now. As you know, the average man is about 7.5, 8 heads tall, and we're going to stick to around those same proportions. Here's the shoulder. This line here is going to indicate his waist, and this line here will be his hips. These little circles that I'm making indicate the joints. That's going to be his shoulder joints, and this is going to be his hips. Let's have this fellow playing guitar. So what we'll do is we'll have his legs straddle or drop. That circle there indicates his knees. Little shapes for his legs. Now his hand, his arm starts there. Circle for his elbow. And this hand comes forward like that. Now you got to remember, everything you do when you're making a drawing is in direct. Your next line is in direct relation to your last line. For instance, we've already indicated that that's the length of this arm, so we just glance back and see that that's what we have to stick to, and the same proportions will hold for this hand. Okay. This kind of cartooning is about the same proportions. As you know, cartoon figures can be short and squat. Now for the face. In cartooning, it's the same as anything else. We're going to start with a shape and put some guidelines in. Let's put some eyes. Now he's playing guitar, so he's pretty happy. Let's give him a nose, and a mouth, and ears. Now let's give him a crew cut. Hair sticking straight up. Okay, now let's go back over this and thicken up the lines that we already have in there. Let's give him a neck and collar, short sleeves, thicken up these lines. His hand. Hands are tricky. You're going to have someone pose for you or look at your own hands and in different positions. Now let's put the guitar in. Now let's rough that in. Guitars are fun to draw because you can't really do anything wrong. Just make a real funny shape with double cutaway here. And then a post going right through it. This side here to his other hand. His torso. Now his legs. So these little squiggles there for where his pants were bending. Okay, now his hands, fingers, the top of the guitar. Now let's go back over this with a black marker. And this is how cartoonists work, by the way. They pencil it in first and then go over it after they're happy with what they've drawn. Maybe after a lot of erasing, but once they get to this step, they're pretty well ready to draw. Some stubbly hair on the side. Sweet. A little bit of shadowing here. Looks like he's planted right on the ground that way. Maybe a ground line behind him. Now you have the cartoon drawn. Now what a cartoonist would do at this stage is take his eraser and just go over the whole drawing. The ink line stays and the pencil lines leave. Now I worked a little bit heavy on the pencil so you could see it. But they leave and then you have your cartoon. Now you can color it in or do anything you want at this point. Okay, now let's do another pose. This time let's put a little more action into it. Let's have a fella golfing. Start same way with a shape. This is his head. And let's swing his body around this way. And his shoulder blades. And that circle there indicates shoulder where it's going to bend. And his legs, one leg will be like this. Other one will be down like that. And this arm is going to go up like that, and this one down. Here's midway point where his elbow is. This one goes down where the other elbow, and up. Two circles indicate where his hands are. Now that's it. Now we have something to build on. Now let's go back and do that. Let's thicken in and start with the shoulder. And make these bumps because that's going to be like he's wearing a sweater. Now let's give this fella more girth than the other one. Let's make him a little heavier in the midsection there. And let's make his legs. Thicken them up. His hands holding the golf club. His other arm, thicken that up. Now let's put his face in here. Here's his ear. Let's put his nose in. And let's have his hat flying off. Give him a golf hat like that. Put his hair in like this. Squiggly lines like that. Let's have his hair messed up a little bit. And he's not too happy. Let's have an expression on him like this. Eyebrows down, showing he's mad. His teeth clenched. And the reason, let's put his golf club in. Wait a minute. Some strokes there indicate the golf club. The reason why he's not so happy is because down here, the golf ball is mocking him. Because this fella keeps missing. Now, to show action in a cartoon, you can do things that you can't do in regular drawing, and that's motion lines. Like to show that this golf club is really swinging.
Be loose, don't be tight. You don't want to get that real tight look to your work. You want to get that real spontaneous line like this. How much he's missing the ball by. And go over it. Do that. Indicates sort of like where the golf club started. Boom, 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 like that. Maybe a couple more over here. And maybe a line like that up there. Show that he's swinging it around once he got it up there. And maybe a little shadowing on the ground. And some sweat around the laughing golf ball. And even a caption. So you can do things in cartoons you can't do in other kinds of art. And have him sweating too from all the missing he's doing. Okay, this time let's draw a cute girl sunbathing on the beach. All right, we start with her head right about here. And let's have her back going down like that, sort of curved in like that. And I'm going to have her shoulder blades going like this, up on an angle. And you'll see why in a second. Let's put her hips in. One there. And her legs. One leg will be up. There's her knee, and there's her foot. This leg is going to go straight here, down this way. Now let's have this arm supporting her weight. And this one, let's have her holding something, like a some suntan oil. Put that right there. Okay, now let's go back and put some details in. Okay, now to make a cartoon head facing in different directions, you can make your guidelines wrap around this opening shape. Like think of the shape as a balloon or an egg. And this line here will be kind of curved, indicating that her head is a little bit that way. Same thing with this line, wrapping it around. Okay, let's put her facial expression in, which is happy. She's on the beach. Let's make her eyes at half mast here, half closed. And she's looking at us, so I'm putting the pupils a little bit that way. Some big eyelashes, eyebrows up, or a small, cute nose, and a big smile with lipstick. And for her hair, let's give her some bangs and some long hair. Now let's go back. Now this one here, this is her shoulder. Let's give her shoulder just coming up to about where her face is.
her chin. Flaring out again after the elbow. Fingers supporting her weight. Sticking up the torso, her other arm. And let's put a bathing suit on her. And let's make this leg go up, down. Let's have her legs pointed. So let's put her, she's barefooted, so calf, like that. And her other leg's back here. Other foot pointed, calf to that mark here for her knee, and back. Here's her thumb. She's holding this. Her fingers around the other side. The other finger have it sticking out like that. Let's put some suntan oil here. Even put the word oil on it. Now we have it pretty well penciled in. Okay, now let's put the beach line in. There's a sand. Let's put some water in the back. That's a straight line. Some dots indicate that it's sand. Let's give her a little shadowing. And right here, let's put a big circle. Remember how we have them facing in different directions. We're going to think of that as a ball or an egg. This is going to be the sun. Let's put a facial expression on the sun. Who's very happy to see this cute little girl. Because a cartoon isn't just a funny drawing, it should be expressing a funny idea. Okay, now I've inked this drawing in. Now let's go back over it and we're going to put some color in this one. I'm going to be using colored pencils. Now I'm using light peach for her face. And we're going to have the sun, obviously. In this drawing, the sun is right there to see. So our light source is coming from there. And even though this is a cartoon, we still have to stick to the same rules. I'm leaving a little bit of white over here because that's going to be the highlight. I'm putting this in here and I'm going to go right down. See, she doesn't have a tan yet, folks. She's just got out today on the beach. Pull her fingers in. In this case, I'm leaving a little bit of white space. Let the paper work for me right in there. Okay, now I'm leaving this white because it's seeing the sun up there. Okay, now I'm going to go back over this with very, very light brown. And I'm going to shadow this side here very lightly. Underneath part here. Sort of gives you the impression that it's got some roundness to it. Same thing here. Not much though, just a little bit. Put some red in for her lips. Maybe a little white space there, sort of like a shine on the bottom lip. Yeah, I'm going to go back on her cheeks and put a little red there. You can go over that brown a little bit. Yeah, a little bit of red. And maybe even a little bit down there, over the lines like that. Put some red in for the hearts. You don't have to color right up to the line all the time either. A little bit of white showing creates a little bit of interest in your work. Right there. Give him rosy cheeks too. Now let's talk a little bit about composition. Now the goal here is to arrange the elements of your picture in an interesting way. You want to invite the viewer's eye into the picture and make the best use of the frame. Now this may be true for the elements of a landscape or pieces of fruit in a still life. Now here's a guideline that might help. We'll be using a figure. I'm going to divide this rectangle up into thirds. Now the beginner would have tendency to put the center of interest right smack dab in the middle of this picture, but actually there's a more interesting way of doing that. These dots represent where the green lines intersect and are good places for points of interest. We can put some of the centers of interest on those. Let's have a fella hammering a nail in. Here's his face. He's happy about this. And he's holding the nail down here. Give him some more hair. What is this? Okay. His hand up here holding the hammer. Here's the nail. Now you see we have his face over here, and we're bringing your eye right into the action. Okay, let's draw a tree, a different kind of tree than we've been drawing. And by laying the pencil on its side like this, I'm going to do a line like that. Then I'm going to go back on this side using the point and double that line, leaving a little bit of white space. You see I already have the trunk of that tree shadowed a little bit. I'll leave the paper in the middle for the white part. Let the paper work for me. Same thing here. I'm going to lay it down, make it jagged, because trees have different shapes to them. Very interesting. Like that. Now, obviously the light is coming from this side because that's the shaded side. So this one here, let's just draw with the point. And watch how I can turn the pencil and lift it up like that, and I get that real nice natural flow to it. Now I'm going to go back and sort of thicken it up towards the tree, double that line a little bit. And I'm going to darken it in because this one doesn't get shadowed at all because it's on the other side of the tree and it doesn't see any light. Now to put some branches in this, watch what I do. I literally use the point and just keep twisting it and like sort of lose control of the pencil. And by doing that, I get that kind of look. And go off it. Same thing. Look how natural those branches look. If you try to draw them, they might look too contrived. Now let's do some more branches here. I'll lay it down for this. I'm going to go back in and do it again right here. I suggest you go out into a park or the woods and sketch trees, and boy, they are fun to draw. They're so interesting. No two trees are exactly alike either, you'll find that. Let's do that trick again with the let's add some here. Let's add some texture to the tree here. And on the base here, let's upward strokes where the ground would be. For some grass. Now you got the pencil working for you, you got the paper working for you. Pretty soon you don't even have to show up anymore, folks. Okay, let's put some leaves in now. I'm using like a light red. I'm going to lay it on the side and put some leaves in here, very lightly. Very irregular. Just put a little more darker values in here by bearing down on the pencil a little bit and create a little interest that way. Now you can add as much or as little detail as you like. You can add some more branches and even some more leaves. But I think it's kind of an interesting effect to mix the black pencil with a color, just one color, and have the two together. Okay, let's draw a horse. Let's start with a real large circle, like that. Notice how I'm moving my hand around the page and get that feel. And here let's make an elongated cube. And here another circle. A couple lines out of here. And you can see where the beginnings of a horse are happening here. Ear. Now let's go back over this. More or less define what we've got. Darken this in a little bit. Now for the placement of the eye, it's about the top of the cube. Leave a little white space for a highlight and darken this in. Some hair. His mane. Now what you would do is you would select your light source, the nose, select your light source and begin to shadow it and put as much detail as you wish. Okay, now let's do a still life. Now I'm not going to finish this drawing, but I would like to introduce to you another way of shadowing. We're going to be doing this with pen and ink or marker. Let's first do a bowl here, which is like a sphere, only halfway. And let's put in some fruit. Another orange back here maybe. And let's make some grapes, which are nothing more than circles overlapping each other, spilling out of the bowl onto the table like that. A couple of loose ones. Maybe a grapefruit, larger fruit back here, like a grapefruit. Maybe a pear outside the bowl. Okay, we have it roughed in. Now, I'm not going to outline the whole thing, but if I were to go back over this, I'll just do the one orange here. Different hand pressures achieving variation in line. Let's get the top of the bowl too. Now, to shadow this, let me take out the line in the center of it. If the light is coming from this side, we can't do with the marker what we did with pencil by shadowing it and maybe blending it, but we can make real small lines on the darkened side, just like this. Now, you see how that gives the effect of a light tone, even though we're using a single line each time? Looks like the light's hitting it there. Now you can go back over that and crisscross it, and that's called cross-hatching. Okay, let's do a seascape now with a sailboat and some palm trees. Real lightly make a line like that, leave an opening for the sailboat. And let's do just that. Put a sailboat in right there. And a body of land in the distance. Some mountains. And in the foreground, another piece of land. A little reflection. And these lines here for some palm trees going different ways. Now, it's so easy to draw palm trees and fun. Make some spokes like that. On here. And there. Now watch this. Just go up and down each stroke, each spoke. And come down. Be loose, because that's what gets that look to it. And you do the same thing to the others. Okay, now let's put the trunk of the tree in, which is very jagged like this. These things go up like this, if you could see them up close. They look like layers. Go back and put some lines like that. Do the same to these trees. Go right back up. Some lines. And if the light's coming from here, let's have some shadows going this way. Maybe some leaves coming up out of the ground like that. And some real nice strokes, gentle strokes to indicate some wind. And you can go back over a real easy sketch like this and put a little color into it. Laying the pencil on the side, and you don't have to go crazy with detail for this one because it's a real simple sketch. And you can shadow it as much as you want, and then go back and do the sky. And just to show you what a frame can do to enhance a little picture like this too. Okay. All right, now let's try a landscape. And we'll be utilizing some of the same shapes that we've been speaking about. We'll put some mountains in, some trees, and a cabin. Now I'm going to be working with different lead pencils that are softer leads like 5B and 4B. And with different hand pressures, I'll be able to achieve different variations of tone. All right, not quite halfway up the picture, let's make a shape that comes out like that and goes back in. And over here, a little bit lower than that, let's have another shape that comes back out and back. And about halfway, let's make a line that goes straight across to the other side. Now, real lightly, we're going to suggest a diagonal line where some evergreen trees are going to be in the distance, and another line going up that way. Now for a mountain, which I'll make the highest peak right there. Another one back there, maybe. Okay, now let's tone this body of land. Now, if the light's coming from this way, that means that we'll think of this as a rounded sphere, the top part of a sphere, which means that the front part won't be seeing that much light, so we're going to make that darker and gradate the tone all the way up. First, put some tone in. And right here, let's put in some darker value. Laying the pencil on the side, look how much ground I can cover. Make the pencil work for me. Okay, now right here, let's put in the cabin, which will be, as you know, a square. That will turn into a cube. And a triangle for the roof. And let's see, right about less than halfway down, let's make another line and add a shed to it. Coming right out of the side of the house. Let's carve it right out. How about our porch? Okay, how about some shrubbery around the house? And a chimney, which is a cube. And the bottom part takes on the shape of the house. It slants. Darken that side. Okay, there's our house. Now, let's erase some of this. Okay, how about a rowboat right here, which is a shape like that. Darken the inside. Tone it, but we tie it right to the front of the house there. Got some grass in the foreground. now let's put an evergreen tree. Now we're going to lay this point down. Squiggly lines like that will suggest an evergreen. Go back and forth. Now this one back here. Using more the point for this one. How you doing so far? You okay? You with me? Okay, now in the distance, we're going to put some evergreen trees in, but we're going to go very, very lightly. And we're going to lay this pencil on the side, just go up, down, leaving that jagged edge on the top to give the impression that there are trees in the distance. Okay, now these are the mountains, so let's go down, make some broad strokes like this, next to each other, so we get a different texture than what we have been doing. We'll go back over it in a second to carve out some shadowing, but right now let's just get the tone in by doing this. Move that right up to the point, come down, and I can do it here too because there'll be some bumps within the mountain too in there. Now what we're going to do now is take our kneaded eraser. We could do one of two things. We could squiggle it a little bit, go from side to side to sort of smear it. Or we can, some downward strokes might help a little.
And this is our completed, peaceful mountain scene.
Well, that's about all we have time for. I hope that learning some of these basics has given you some foundation to continue to learn to draw. And if you've enjoyed this tape, you may enjoy other Blitz tapes as well, like basic cartooning or learning to draw your own comic strips. And remember this, to have fun when drawing. Don't worry about good or bad. You're an artist, express yourself. And I suggest that you develop the habit of keeping a sketch pad with you at all times, like when you walk in the park or when you go to a ball game, or even just sketching things in your own living room. And if you do this, you'll find a couple things will happen. One, you'll look at things differently and you'll learn to break them down to their basic elements, sort of like drawing them in your own mind. And two, you'll develop a whole new appreciation for the beautiful things in this world. I'm Bruce Blitz saying thank you and keep on drawing.